Right, so we know that the election is here, and we know that, within another 24 hours, we're going to have a new president, right? Whatever the case may be, we can't predict the market. But what I do want us to know as investors is the stock market and investing are one and the same blessings, right? And so how I want us to do, I want us to be able to pivot, and I want us to be able to move forward no matter who's in office. So that's what this is about tonight. I definitely want to just tap in with us, right? So here's a few things I want to break down to us tonight that I really want us to tap into, that I really want us to understand, right? So one of the things is this: over the past 23 elections, right? The past 23 elections since 1928, 14 presidents were in 14 of the 13 presidents that was in the market. If the market went up over the last 3 months, then the president that was in office stayed, right, over the last 23 elections, right? So if the market went up over the last 3 months that the president was in, whatever the incumbent party was, they wound up staying in the office, right? Over the last 3 months, 9 out of those, if the market went down within the last 3 months, then a new president came into office, right? So while the stock market doesn't tell us exactly who's going to get into office, we can get an idea of looking at past trends. And that's one of the great things about the market and just being a great investor is we look at past trends and we look at past things that happen, and we use that to move forward. We use that to make investments based on what's going on, right? So again, I'm gonna say that, right? If we look at the last 23 elections that took place, right? If we look at 13 out of 14 of those, if the market went up, right, whoever was in office at the time stayed in. 9 out of those 23, if the market went down the last 3 months, then that president was moved out and a new president came in. So right now, one of the numbers that I want us to look at, right, what I want us to look at is the number 3295. I'm gonna say that again, the number 3295. So we look at the S&P 500. If it hits 3295 or below, then that's a good chance that Donald Trump will lose the election, right? So we look at that. So you get on there and you look at the S&P number, and you see it's at 3295, right? The S&P 500, those basis points. If you see the S&P 500 hit those basis points of 3295 or below, it's a good chance that Trump will remove out of the office. So this is how the stock market correlates with what's going on in politics, right? So another thing that we've noticed is we've seen that the stock market has backed Joe Biden significantly, right? And so one of the things also we need to understand is this, and I want us to tap in and understand, like, the stock market don't really be caring who in office, right? They actually fund all presidents, right? Because here's the thing, and what we got to understand is, so it's always a game being played, and if we pay attention to the game that's being played, then we can also play the same game. It's not about us trying to decipher, it's about us being able to understand and navigate through the game. We can navigate through the game, and we can play it to the highest level. We just need to understand the rules, and by what's the game plan, what's the strategies in which the other people or the other parties are moving at. It's just time for us to get in the game. So let me just give us some more numbers, right? So typically what has happened over time is Democrats have actually outperformed Republicans when in office. I'll say that again. Over time, Democrats have given us about a 6.7% per year increase in the market, and Republicans have typically given us about 3.8% per year. So Democrats have typically outperformed the market. So I want people to stop thinking that if Joe Biden gets in office, then the market is going to crash or the market is going to go down. That's not the case. The market is going to go up regardless. It's just dependent on who's in the office, who typically does what. Now, here's a number that I want us to know, right? So I'm going to give us 4 presidents, and I'm going to let us look at it and understand what's going on, right? So under Democratic regime, and I told y'all that Democrats have given the market better returns than Republicans, but over the last 3 presidents, right, Democrats have dominated, right? Well, let's say since 1993, so not Democrats have dominated, right? So let's look at Clinton gave the market about a 15.2% increase, whereas Bush gave the market about 7.5% increase. So we seeing Clinton and we seeing Bush, right? And so when we look at Barack gave the market about a 13.8% increase, and Donald Trump has given the market about 11.5% increase. So again, we see that Democrats are pushing the market further than Republicans. But we also must understand that each party has a preference of what happens when they're in there, right? And so what I want us to understand that 80% of the billionaires, listen to me good, 80% of all billionaires and wealthy people have their money tied into some form of business. Let's say that again, 80% of all billionaires and wealthy people in America have their wealth tied to a business. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, but typically they're getting better returns with Democrats. So what we know is Wall Street is going to back both candidates, because the game is this: don't play with this. You feel what I'm saying? Like, don't play with this, right? So now what we want to do, what we want to say is this: how do we navigate and how do we transition and pivot no matter who's in office? A while back, I told you something, right? I said that Democrats typically spend about $400 billion on defense, right? So they put a lot of money into defense, right? So if you thinking Democrats in the office, so we know, how do we pivot? Well, if Democrats in office, we know they're going to spend about $400 billion on what? Defense. So that means that's your aerospace, that's your Lockheed Martin, that's your Regenerons, even Boeings, right? So we just got to understand, where does it go? Also, we also know that no matter who's in office, the pharmaceutical industry has typically getting about a 25% piece of that budget, no matter who's in office. So that tells us this. That tells us no matter who's in office, that we should have some portion of our portfolios where at? In the healthcare sector, right? So we dealing with, anything dealing with healthcare. We have to understand just how to play the game. That's how we win. Yes, Northern Grumman. That's all this is. It's a game, and we just have to learn how to push pawns. We learn how to push pawns by playing the game. Time in the market is more important than timing the market, right? And so another great aspect that we need to learn about this is long-term investing, right? Long-term investing. So long-term investing is us saying that over the long term, I am going to build my wealth. Right? We won't get rich overnight, right? So that's one thing we have to take out of our mind, and we got to understand that wealth overnight and riches overnight, it isn't a real factor, right? So what is attainable is long-term wealth. So let me give you an example of why I said this statement earlier. 80% of billionaires have their money tied into a business, whether it's on a stock market or whether it's a private business. Here's what one of the things I want us to know, right? So check this out. And I want you to look at this number, right? Warren Buffett made a $25 million investment, right, in See's Candy. So See's Candy was a candy company that he bought, right? The person, and Warren said, and this is why it's important for us to understand the value of a business. And this is one of the things we talk about so hard in the Wall Street Trappin course, the value of a business, how to appraise a business, right? So let's hear this, right? So Warren Buffett paid $25 million for a business called See's Candies, right? See's Candy. The owner wanted $29 million for it. Warren said, listen, I'm not giving you $1 over $25 million, right? The owner said, okay, cool. I'm not going to let $4 million break this deal, right? Warren Buffett bought the business for $25 million. Over the course of 30 years, that $25 million turned into $1.9 billion. Let me say that again. Let's backtrack and let's talk about long-term wealth, right? Warren Buffett bought a business, See's Candy, a business that he owned, a business that he understood the value in, right? And so because he understood the value of the business, He said, listen, this business is worth $25 million. This is what I'm willing to pay you for it. The owner said, well, I want $29 million for it. Warren said, I'm not giving you $29 million. I'll give you $25 billion, not a dollar more, not a dollar less. Now, we can look at this from both ways, right? One way we look at it and say, well, Warren, you got that much money. What's $4 million? And we can look at the owner of Seeds Candy, like, and let's say Warren didn't make the investment, he would have missed out on $1.9 billion in a 30-year time span, right? Over $4 million. But the CEO said, you know what? I'm going to cash out on the $25 million, $4 million is not going to break me. You know, I'm going to get to do what I want to do, right? So what happened was this. Warren made the deal. He evaluated the business, and over the course of 30 years, that $25 million turned to $1.9 billion. This is the power of long-term investing and compounding, right? So this is what we do. This is another thing that we have to understand and we have to learn when it comes to investing, right? No, a great business isn't a great investment if we pay the wrong price for it. Right? So let's say that again. A great business isn't a great investment if we pay the wrong price for it. Right? So if Warren Buffett would have paid $27 million, in his mind, he was paying the wrong price for the business. Right? He was paying the wrong price for the business. And so he was willing to walk away. One of the things I want us to know that if we aren't willing to pay, if we don't get the price that we feel the business is worth, we have to be willing to walk away. Because the greatest thing you can do in investing is compound your money. The rate of return at what you get on your money is what makes an investment worth investing in. So I'll say this again. No great business makes a great investment if you don't pay the right price for it, right? No great business makes a great investment if we pay the wrong price for it. Like, I want us to make that sit in. I want us to understand that being able to walk away. I'm walking away from this business because it's not the right price. And that comes with understanding value and knowing when to buy business. Another thing that I want us to do is, why is it that long-term investing is what we doing, right? And so so people often ask me, well, Trap, do you do swing trading? Do you do options trading? Do you, listen, I'm in the game, so I do a lot of everything. But the most important thing for me is long-term investing. Why? Because over the long term, the stock market is made for me to win. Right? Over the long term, the stock market is made for me to compound and build my wealth and build my money. Right? And so that's one of the things I want us to do. So you think about the money that you spend on a day-to-day basis, right? The money that you spend on a day-to-day basis, how much of that money is actually giving you a return? Right? We spend money all day, every day. How much of that money is actually giving us a return? Little to none of it, right? But even when we put our money in the stock market, I don't care if it's $10. If we buy that $10 stock, over the long term, that $10 stock will give us a return on our money. And that's what this is all about, right? We want to get a great return on our money, a ROI, return on investment, which is really important for us, right? And so one of the ways that we can get a great return on our investment, right, is understanding growth and value. Right? Is understanding growth and value. So here's another gem for us while we looking at business and while we investing in businesses, right? Let's consider two things. Does the business have a strong niche, and does the business have a great market share? Right? Does the business have a strong niche, and does the business have a strong market share? So now you like, Trap, you talking about niches and you talking about market share, we talking about growth, you talking about value. Like, break that down for me so I can understand just a little more, Trap. No problem, right? So we ask ourselves, does a business have a strong niche, right? Or does a business have strong market share? And so we'll break this down into two things, two categories. We'll break it down into growth and value. So a great growth stock just out the gate is Apple. Apple is an amazing growth stock. You like, Trap, Apple been around a long time, but the company is continuously growing, right? So here's the thing about Apple, right? When you look at them, you say, okay, what is their niche? right? Well, Apple has a niche and a moat. Their huge moat is what's called a switching moat. So Trap, what is a switching moat? We break down moats again in the Wall Street Trappin course, but for y'all who don't have it, a switching moat is simple. It's what a business, if you get inside of a business's ecosystem. So Apple has an ecosystem. Once Apple gets you inside of their ecosystem, it's hard for you to leave, right? It's a switching mode. It's actually an inconvenience if you leave, right? So that's a switching mode. A switching mode is the competitive edge that a business has when you get into their business. So a lot of times, if you get inside of Apple's switching mode, it's a good chance you're not gonna leave, because you got the Apple iPhone, you got the iMac, you got the iPad, you got an Apple Watch. You know, you got all your stuff on the Apple cloud, right? So it's hard for you to come up out of that. So now you like, you know what? I'm not going to go get this Samsung. I'm not going to go get this other phone. I'm not going to get this Yahweh phone. I'm not going to get those, because why? I'm already inside of the Apple ecosystem. Everything is tied to Apple Music. Everything is tied to the cloud. Everything is tied to the App Store. I'm going to just stay here. Right? So I'm tied to this. So that is Apple's moat, right? Another company with a strong moat that people don't realize is Amazon, right? And they have two moats, right? Because the one moat is the branding moat that Amazon has. The convenient moat, right? So I want you to think about something. When the company's name turns into a verb, you know that company has now transitioned into a moat. Right? So what do you mean? Well, you about to go online. What you say, man? I'm about to just get on Prime. Right? I'm a Prime it. You know what I'm saying? I'm an Amazon Prime. Once the business has turned it has become a verb, then at that point you know the business is that. But not only does Amazon give us that, right? Not only does Amazon put us in a position where we say, well, I'm gonna just get on Amazon, right? But the biggest mode is with AWS, Amazon Web Services, right? It is the biggest cloud business that's out there. Once these corporate jobs and these corporate businesses get inside of Amazon, the chances of them leaving Amazon is slim to none. Once they get inside of AWS, it's slim to none that they're gonna leave, right? So you in it, just a done deal. That is a moat, right? So it's a competitive advantage. It's also that is a switching moat. Businesses can have multiple moats. So one of the great things is we only invest in businesses that have moats, right? We can't go any other way. If it doesn't have a moat, we don't want no part of it, because if they don't have a moat, that means the competition can eat them alive. If the competition can eat them alive, that means the competition can eat our investment. And we only want to make great investments, right? And great businesses, right?